Hello, everyone!
Hi, my name is Mark. So today I thought I'd do a video talking about why your modes don't really sound like modes.
Wait, what?
I know, that may sound kind of crazy, but you know what I'm talking about. You learn your Dorian modes and your Lydian modes and your Mixolydian modes, then you're like,
Well, this just sounds like the major scale, or I don't really get why people call this a dreamy scale, or kind of a bluesy scale, or the Santana scale. I don't really know what's going on.
and I know why you don't know what's going on.
You serious?
Maybe I can help you in some way, I don't know, but that's why I'm going to make this video, right? I know this is going to be some kind of a really quick kind of intro, but come on, we don't really have time for much more than this, do we?
How about no?
Before we get into the playing part, I just want to mention, please subscribe to my channel and turn on all the notifications.
Meh.
YouTube has been acting a little bit crazy lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, you may really not be notified of that channel's content. And that really sucks. Maybe there's a video of that channel that you really want to see, but you're not notified, or it doesn't show up on your subscription box, and you end up missing that video, or you end up not really being subscribed to that channel, and you're like, well, I didn't really unsubscribe to this channel, so why is this happening? To make sure that you can stay tuned to your favorite content and your favorite creators, please turn on all the notifications. Not just occasional notifications or livestream notifications. You really gotta make sure you turn on all the notifications.
Like somebody, you better.
While you're down there, please consider leaving a like and perhaps checking some of my other videos out. Maybe you'd like to check out Playing with Octaves taken to its full extent. Or maybe you could check out 5 music theory concepts explained for guitar. And lastly but not leastly, what about checking my video about an hack on how to play over chord changes that is approved by Marty Friedman and Jason Becker? All of those videos will be on the description below, on the annotations of the end screen, and on the card section right there. So I guess we can just get to the playing part.
We're waiting.
One important thing to mention before we get into this playing part, I guess. If you don't know what the modes of the major scale are, if you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, I highly suggest you go check out that video about music theory that I mentioned before. Again, it's in the cards and will be on the annotations of the end screen. But basically, you have your regular major scale, right? If you keep playing your major scale but in different positions, like, as you can see, they're really the same notes, you're just playing them in a different position. But let's say that you're playing a chord progression in C major, like. Of course you can keep playing your regular C major scale over both chords, like. But the purpose of modes is that when you go to that next chord, that D minor, in this case D minor 7 actually, you can play the second mode of your regular major scale, this mode. So you can kinda go.
Okay, then.
And one can argue two different things. You can either say, well, but you're just playing different scales over different chords, and yes, they're different scales, but effectively they're just the same scale because they're the same note. You're just focusing on different notes. That's the basic purpose of a mode, is that you have the same notes, but you're focusing on different notes of that amount of different notes, I guess. In that way you can either say, okay, even though I'm playing a different mode when I go to that D minor chord, it still sounds like the major scale to me. It really depends. And what I mean with it really depends on the notes you're playing. Forget about that latest chord progression, let's say that you have like a C minor chord. The thing you would probably do first is play your C minor pentatonic, right? And it will, of course, work. But let's say you're like a Guthrie Govan fan. By the way, check out the video I made about sounding like Guthrie Govan. It's actually why you don't sound like Guthrie Govan, but yeah, check it out, don't forget about it.
Yeah, maybe.
I talk about the Dorian mode and how he likes to use the Dorian mode a lot, and how it's a really kind of bright minor scale. And you can play that mode just by playing your minor pentatonic scale, but adding 2 notes. You gotta add that D note to your C minor pentatonic, and you gotta add that A note to your C minor pentatonic. So you'd get. As you can see, it doesn't sound like the minor pentatonic scale. There's definitely a connection between both of those, right? If you just play your minor pentatonic licks and add those little Dorian notes as passing tones, like. It's not like it doesn't sound good, it sounds good, but it can kind of sound like you're just playing your minor pentatonic again, right? Listen to what happens if you focused on those Dorian notes, like... It kinda gives you a different feel, and Guthrie Govan would, I guess, kind of argue it would count as sounds somehow Santana-ish, and that's what I'm trying to get at, is that your modes don't sound like modes because maybe you're not treating each note as a possible note, you're just using those notes as passing tones. And it's like when you play your chromatic scale, right? You have your C minor chord, and if you play your C chromatic scale, all of those notes work, right? But if you focus on one of those notes, like if you play your C minor chord, and you add, for instance, let's say that major third, because it is on the C chromatic scale, it really doesn't sound good, right? That can be the next Slayer tune, I guess. But here's what's important. Different notes have different qualities over chords. And both of the notes that are in the Dorian mode, for instance, when you play your C minor chord, either if you play that D or that A, those notes are extensions of the first chord you played. If you add the D to your chord, you got a C minor 9. And if you add the A, you get a C minor 6th of some sort. And that's what it means to play a mode, is that you can focus on the notes that make that mode special.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die.
Let's look at Lydian and the C major scale, for instance. If you play the C major scale, it's your regular major scale, right? If you play your Lydian mode, which is basically your C major scale, but with a sharpened fourth, that's the mode / scale that people say, well, that has a really dreamy sound. It really isn't that much different than your C major scale, right? Does that mean that that sharpened fourth is the note that makes it sound, I don't know, somehow dreamier? Like, yes and no. For instance, if you listen to any type of metal, you can listen to this type of chord progression a lot, like... These two intervals, this is a power chord of course, but this is the same interval that we were mentioning before. But for some reason, one sounds really dark and kind of dissonant, while the other just sounds, I don't know, kind of weird, I guess. That's because of what I mentioned before. It really means that you gotta use the modes as, okay, each mode has a different characteristic than your regular major scale. For instance, Lydian has that sharpened fourth. But it's not the sharpened fourth that makes Lydian sound like it is. It's the sharpened fourth against the other notes. If I play your C major scale, a regular chord you could play would be a C major 7, right? But if I play the Lydian scale, you can still play that C major 7 chord, but you could perhaps play that C major 7 sharp 11. And by itself, it's not like it's a completely awesome sound, right? But listen to what happens if you switch between those. It somehow gives you that more dreamier and spacier vibe, right? And it's not because you're playing some kind of different note that isn't really on the C Lydian scale. It's still the same notes of your C Lydian scale. It's just that you're focusing on the notes that make that scale special. For instance, if you're playing, I don't know, an A minor, right? If you play some kind of minor mode what would probably happen is you're going to play your regular Aeolian mode, your natural minor scale, right? If you want to get the particular sound of that mode or that scale, you really gotta land on the notes that make that scale sound, well, like that scale, right? Let's look at the Dorian mode we mentioned before. It's just like your regular minor scale, but instead of flattening the sixth, you play your natural sixth. That really may not sound like much, but listen to what happens if you really land on that note. Against maybe I didn't really play the same licks, but you were able to get a general idea, right? I basically played one note different from both of those examples. One time I played an A minor chord and some kind of open string goodness. And then ended up landing on that F sharp note. And that has a different characteristic of perhaps landing on that F note like I did before. For instance, a lot of people can get the melodic minor sound kind of odd, because even though they say it's a melodic scale, it really doesn't sound that melodic, right? This is your regular C minor scale. And this is your melodic minor scale. It is basically your C major scale, but instead of having a major third, you have a minor third. I guess that's probably why they call it some kind of melodic scale, because they're like,
Oh yeah, if it's just like the major scale and the major scale is melodic, then this is also melodic. It's just minorly melodic, melodic minor. Whoa!
this is really what you gotta do if you want to get that melodic minor sound. You play your C minor chord, it gives you, I don't know, some kind of a horror movie kind of sound.
Oh, I'm so scared.
Maybe this can help you out. If somebody says, okay, we're going to play in D Dorian. You can approach just like, well, D Dorian, I guess, okay, D Dorian, I can play the Dorian scale, but Dorian is a minor mode, so I can play my minor pentatonic stuff. But is that really going to sound like Dorian? I mean, if you really want to focus on that Dorian sound, you gotta hit those Dorian notes. Maybe some of you already know this kind of thing, and it may be because it's something that guys like Guthrie Govan talk about, and I can guess probably Steve Vai talked about this and Josette Rain talked about this because they use the same approach, but hearing people explain to you what to do is really not the same thing as you being the one to do it.
Say what?
One thing is being like, oh yeah, I know that if you gotta play a C major 7 sharp 11, you can play your Lydian mode. But have you actually played the Lydian mode over that chord? Do you know what notes work the best and which notes don't work maybe as nicely? Do you know what it means to have tension and release? For instance, if you have your D minor chord, if you just play there isn't really much tension on it. Sure, you can kind of play, You can argue that your can maybe sound kind of tense, but that's not really what it means, right? If you have a D minor chord and you play something over that D minor chord, you're going to end up resolving on that D, right? Whatever you play, even if you play, you're going to end on that note, on that D. Even if you play, you're ending on that D, or you're perhaps ending on that D minor chord. So there isn't going to be that much tension on it. But let's say that perhaps you play your D minor chord or your D minor 7 chord, and let's just focus a little bit on the, I don't know, on the 9th, for instance. That note doesn't really sound resolved, right? You really want to hear that resolution of... That's what your ear is telling you, is like,
that note, please, leave that note. Give me them good notes. Give me that resolution. Give me the notes I'm waiting for.
and that's what really happens when you have those mode notes and those chord notes that really, or those scale notes that really aren't on the chord, but you know that you can play. And knowing which notes work, which notes don't work, and which notes work, but you really gotta be careful about them. And when I mean careful, I really mean you gotta end up resolving it somehow. Let's say your regular blues scale. Everybody plays the scale, right? Just your minor pentatonic, but you have that little diminished fifth. Everybody plays this. But what would happen if you land on that note? Yeah, that note sounds really good. Yeah, you can land on that note, of course you can. It's in the scale, if it's in the scale you can land on that note, right? Yeah, sounds good.
In my opinion, that sucks.
If you're going to play a note, you gotta know why that note works and why that note doesn't work, or maybe, okay, I can play that note, but I really gotta be able to resolve it. Even if you land on that little diminished fifth note, if you're confident enough, it can work. But you gotta be aware of that. You can just play a note that's in the scale because it's in the scale, I can play that note. I guess I'm just going on a tangent. I should end it right here because Guthrie Govan made a much better video on this that you probably watch as well, let's be honest. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Trying to do different exercises and trying to, I guess, maybe jam over chord progressions, or maybe if you have some kind of a looper, just loop one chord and try to hear, not just play and try to jam over it. Try to play any note over that chord, and even if it doesn't sound good, try to make it sound good, or try to make it work within the chord progression or within the sound you're trying to by yourself. Basically saying, yeah, I'm in charge, I can play this note if I want to, and you're going to listen to this note if you're going to listen to me. Having that power is really important. And you can only have that power if you know how to use theory, if you know what notes sound like, and effectively not just play scales. Like, play what sounds good to you, and what doesn't sound good to you, try to make it sound good. But, yeah.
He's right. Do you know that?
Thank you so very much for watching. If I was able to help you out in any way possible, or maybe you thought this was a good idea for a video, please leave a comment below. Not only telling if you agree with me, or maybe you have some suggestions for other videos, or maybe there was something I was supposed to say. Don't forget to leave it in the comments below.
Oh, well, what if I said, well, if you... Yeah.
As always, I'm giving away free one-on-one Skype lessons, and anyone can enter, but they are limited though, so you gotta be fast.
I'm fast as fuck, boy!
And all you have to do to win one free Skype lesson and discounts on future lessons is to subscribe to my channel, turn on all the notifications, follow me on social media, and then DM me on one of those social media like Instagram and Facebook with screenshots proving that you did everything mentioned before.
Oh, hell no!
And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching, consider subscribing, and cheers!